want no money.
That's what she said.
And then she gets upset, you know, and y'all have to go and seek out the interview because people are questioning her lifestyle like she got this here doing something else. No, for the past how many years since Trayvon Martin, you all have been reaping havoc on the United States.
Very, very exciting. All right, folks, remember, Wake Up with Rob Finnerty tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. He starts, not 7 o'clock. We're going to see you guys then.
Hi, I'm Jane King, and this is New to the Street, in person back here at the Nasdaq market site in New York City. This show is all about public-private blockchain companies, the CEOs, the founders, and the innovators, bringing you lots of opportunities to consider. Here we go. Tonix recently announced data from 3 oral presentations at the 2022 American Transplant Congress by faculty at the Center for Transplantation Sciences at Massachusetts General Hospital. And with me to explain the significance of this, the CEO, Seth Letterman. Great to see you again, Seth.
Thank you for having me on, Jane.
So let's talk about this. So this data involves studies of the TNX 1500 product candidate for the prevention of organ transplant rejection. So what did the data tell us about that?
It was a very exciting day, and I was glad to be there in person. The faculty from Massachusetts General Hospital, which is a part of Harvard Medical School, are collaborating with us to study TNX 1500 in transplantation. And they got really interesting results in both kidney transplant and heart transplant. And this is a monoclonal antibody, which is one of the biggest categories in the pharmaceutical sector because monoclonal antibodies are so specific and they have such great therapeutic potential that except for Pfizer's mRNA vaccine, the biggest products in pharmaceuticals tend to be monoclonal antibodies. Yeah. What the results showed was the treatment with TNX 1500 prevented the rejection of kidneys or of hearts in monotherapy, meaning that they could be just used alone with only this therapy.
Okay.
So this is a really potential new treatment to prevent organ transplant rejection.
Oh, interesting. And the monoclonal, by the way, I think we've all become familiar with that term. Like we've all gotten a lot more familiar with pharmaceutical terms, I think, over the past couple of years. Okay, so that's major. So this was, an initial trial, or what's next for this?
The TNX 1500 interacts with a molecule in the immune system called CD40 ligand. And people have tried to make good monoclonal antibodies against CD40 ligand for many years. It's been known that this is a very promising target, but Tonix was able to engineer this particular antibody so it would have all of the activity that people had hoped for, and it did not have the toxicity that had been seen with earlier versions. So the next step, we've guided that we will be in phase 1 trials in humans before the end of this year.
Okay, interesting. Now you're also doing some work with monkeypox and smallpox, which I understand are kind of similar. This is TNX 801, and you presented some data there at the Canadian Society of Virology. So explain what you're working on there.
Yes, unfortunately, I couldn't be in Canada and Boston at the same time, but other people from the company were there. It's very exciting because monkeypox is now an emergent threat. You may have seen that what started as a few cases outside of Africa has grown to first 300, then 900, and we don't know where it's going. Monkeypox is in the same family of viruses as smallpox. But we've been working on these 2 viruses, on a vaccine for these 2 viruses for many years. And we have already very compelling data showing that our vaccine protects monkeys from a lethal challenge with monkeypox. So we are racing forward to get this in a position for human clinical trials.
Should we be worried about monkeypox? What do you think?
Well, I think two things. One is that as frightening as the current outbreaks are outside of Africa, they are from a West African strain of monkeypox. And so far, to my knowledge, no one has died. There is a monkeypox strain in Central Africa that has a mortality that could be as high as 10%. Now that could be, it's more lethal in infants and in older people. Okay. So, but it has a significant mortality associated with it. So I think that we need to take this current monkeypox outbreak very seriously, but it's a warning sign that we need to be on the lookout for the Central African strain. Because if the Central Africa strain had the same outbreak outside of Africa, it would be devastating. But I don't mean to minimize what's already happened with the West African strain. This is a real threat to public health.
Okay, and any final thoughts about Tonix, where you're headed for the rest of 2022?
Well, Tonix is at a very exciting point. We're working some of the most exciting areas and some of the most challenging areas facing humanity today. Obviously, monkeypox is just breaking out all over the world. Originally came from Africa. Smallpox is a threat because of the risk of malicious reintroduction by rogue nations or terrorists. And one of our most exciting programs that's in the clinic now is for fibromyalgia, which is a pain disorder that causes a lot of disability and will soon be in the clinic with a treatment for long COVID, another big problem. So we have a lot going on at Tonix. I'm very grateful to you for bringing me on the show to discuss it.
No, I appreciate it. It's always interesting to hear, and important work too. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth.
Thank you.
Okay.
SEKUR, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. SEKUR is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using proprietary military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. SEKUR doesn't collect or sell your data and doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. You can message and email non-secure users privately without the need for others to download SEKUR. Visit SEKUR.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
SEKUR is a way to protect your instant messages, your email. They don't data collect, so it's particularly good for businesses that are looking to discuss some confidential information. And with me, the CEO of SEKUR, Linqto, to talk about let's talk about the hacks, because it seems like every day there's something, some places getting hacked, millions gone. What kind of things are you seeing lately, these hacks?
So hi everyone for watching us, and thank you for listening to us. So what happened is, the latest news has been the hack of remote work. There's a big trend on remote work. Even though COVID has abated a lot, now companies have that habit of, people are going to work from home in hybrid mode. So 3 days a week you're going to be home. I was watching yesterday on Bloomberg, and they said 18 to 24-year-olds, if they can't work from home, they want to change their job. So this kind of work from home is going to stay with us. And the problem is the same problem we had during COVID, where you would call your credit card company and it's an overseas operator in India or the Philippines. They were shut down, and they don't have the infrastructure and the security in their home of highly encrypted communication. Obviously, they're in a small place and they just have basic internet. So hackers had a field day the last 2-3 years. Now they're discovering that half of the population wants to work from home. And the problem is, when you're home and you have a router, First of all, the most popular password is password, and sometimes it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
So you don't have a highly secure internet connection. Then you also mix. For example, you have an email, you use your Outlook, but then you're going to go on your WhatsApp to quickly chat with your coworker. Because if you and I are in an office, Jane, we basically can go to another room, have a conference, and do face-to-face meeting. Now it's all through chat and email. So it's like a paradise for hackers. They intercept everything, they hack, they data mine whatever you have, they go into your phone through these free big tech chat applications that we all use. And then eventually, you get a big hat and it costs the company millions of dollars. You mentioned earlier that it's costing millions. The global economy in 2021 suffered a $6 trillion loss from real money that was stolen and loss of productivity.
Yeah.
The cyber hacking business is massive.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, the work from home trend. Now, do secure products, can they help with that?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you how, because what happened is when you use Secure with your Secure Send button, for example, you basically can send an email to somebody who is not part of Secure. You go on your webmail. We have an application actually coming mid-June that you don't even have to go on the webmail anymore. And you send to somebody who has Gmail or Outlook or Hotmail, and that person receives a notice. They click on a link, and they can read your message, get as many attachments as you send them, and then they can reply, all of that without having to use Secure. So it's a great way to protect the sender and the receiver.
Yeah.
Our viewers can go on secure.com. You can go to the support page. We have a video tutorial, and you just check to see how to use Secure Send.
Yeah.
And it's a part of our normal email service. Now, when you use chat, we all use these free applications, right? We're not going to name them all. Essentially, what happens is not everybody has Secure Messenger, right? So what happens is you should be able to chat with somebody securely. So we invented something called Chat by Invite. So if I have Secure Messenger and you don't, I can send you a text. You will get a text. You'll click on a link, and then we chat together.
Okay.
So it's a pretty amazing
it's encrypted
tool.
on both ends.
It's encrypted on both ends, basically you don't need, the recipient doesn't need to download Secure. But then when you're done with your conversation, you can basically terminate the conversation and nobody can get in.
Okay. Now, one thing I think about is, like, I've got this email system years. Is there a way that I can use Secure and, like, transport all of those contacts over? Okay, you can do that.
Absolutely. So if you have whatever email you have, you can use Secure. You can migrate your old email. You can also, obviously now we launch business emails, and you can also migrate your domain name with us. And if you're just creating a new business, you can basically create your domain, which you bought already, and you configure your email with us. It's super easy to do. You don't need to be an IT technical person to migrate your emails. I would still recommend people to have one of these free email service, because you're going to sign up for newsletter, for gym membership, for anything else. And I would use that free email, which is not private at all, for these kind of things. Because what's happening, unfortunately, is marketers sell your emails. Like my secure email, I keep it as private as possible. I have another email when I sign up for services.
Got it. So use like that kind of throwaway email for the extra stuff, but any business or confidential use.
And also our email comes with 100 gigabyte of storage. It comes with a privacy tool like Secure Send. It has a bunch of cool tools. The Secure module lets you know when you send Secure Send to someone, it'll let you know if they saw it, when they saw it. You can recall an email. We have archiving capability that we're launching as well. So you can be an individual, a small business, or a huge enterprise and still have all the tools that you need. As a matter of fact, in Latin America, we're starting to sell quite a lot of the Secure Messenger and now the email as well. These are used by government entities and big companies.
Okay, so let's talk about a little business here. I know that you've raised some money. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, so tell me about that and the uplisting.
Sure. So we raised, what happened is we have a plan to uplist to Nasdaq. Of course, I have to do full disclosure. There's no guarantee we're going to be there, but we have done the process. We had about 5 offers from investment bank. We selected one, and now we started the process. Before that process, we were in the middle of raising money for a few shareholders that missed out on our November raise. So we're going to raise about $500,000. We went to 700,000. The price was 28 cents US with a full warrant at 56 cents for 2 years. And we were happy because we raised more money. We had to stop it at some point because we had a hard deadline of April 19. Because from that date onward, we are starting our process for the SEC filing. So the company has about 5.7 million in the bank, US dollars, 7 point something Canadian dollar, no debt. Today, with the money that we have enough cash, enough runway to go to profitability. However, we plan to uplist to Nasdaq to get more funding as well because we can accelerate the growth. Meanwhile, we've done a pretty good milestone. We just got upgraded to OTCQX. Now, the QX is a very stringent compliance requirement. You need to have operational history, and you need to have minimum assets and cash in the bank. So meeting that requirement really is a testimony to how serious we are and what kind of company we are, even though we're a small cap or micro cap. We definitely have the right requirements to meet those higher stringent requirements. So we're excited. The QX, OTC has been amazing with us. Of course, being on Nasdaq opens to the entire globe and also bigger funds, etc.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Alain. Congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Glint has developed proprietary technology that enables everyone to buy gold. Gold that's stored in Brink's vaults, insured by Lloyd's of London. With Glint's app and debit card, peace of mind is just a few taps away. It's easy to protect your hard-earned savings, and there are no minimums, hidden fees, or financial advisors required. To learn how to safeguard your future, go to glintpay.com or download Glint from your favorite app store.
LaFleur is a Vietnamese-based company, e-commerce company, and with me is the CEO, Louis Gauthier, to talk about the company and the recent acquisition from Society Pass, and explain how the company was formed, Louis. I mean, just give me a little history of LaFleur.
First of all, thank you for having me. So LaFleur is a company that I started in 2015. So it's been about 10 years that I live in Southeast Asia and in particular in Vietnam. And I've been doing e-commerce most of my life, first with Groupon back in Europe and in France in particular, where I'm from. I then joined in 2013 a company named Lazada that used to be owned by Rocket Internet, and then was sold to Alibaba in 2016. And in 2015, I basically realized that there was still a gap in the e-commerce market, and that in particular international brands, world famous brands, were not that were not merchandise that were very suitable for those marketplaces that offered very little control of the supply and protection for the customers. So we decided to start our own e-commerce website that we called LaFleur, and that for the following 5 years did very well. We had more than 200 employees, multi-million-dollar sales, growing very nicely. Until in 2020, we obviously started to experience certain difficulties due to the COVID pandemic, which led to afterwards the acquisition of the company by Society Pass in May 2020.
Okay, so describe it in 2020, what happened? Because, I mean, it seems like digital businesses did okay during that time. So what happened there that was challenging for you?
Well, first of all, as a company, we had very nice growth. We were basically more than doubling revenue every year, and we were raising capital every year. But at the end of 2019, a lot of startups like ours that were high growth, high burn, had difficulties raising further capital because of the environment and what was happening with WeWork at the time. So it made it difficult for us to close we were working on a $40 million round of funding at that time. And then at the beginning of the year, as I said, COVID started to hit and lockdown started to happen. And we were selling fashion goods, international brands. These are not essential goods, right? So all the businesses that were not selling essential goods online actually had to stop their operation for a certain time. So for us, we were unable to basically continue the business for quite an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm. And so you were acquired by Society Pass, which is, operates mainly in Southeast Asia.
Absolutely.
So describe that. Like, what has happened with LaFleur since then, and just take me through that journey.
So after the acquisition of Society Pass, LaFleur became the e-commerce vertical of the Society Pass ecosystem. That is basically building an ecosystem of companies that are digitally enabled in Southeast Asia. And so what has happened is that obviously we joined forces with their team. We are now able to leverage the fact that they are a public company listed on Nasdaq and are well capitalized, which obviously helps us as an e-commerce company, which is a capital intensive business, to obviously expand our operation and grow our sales. But it's also allowed us to rethink our business model and how we are seeing the near future and midterm future for our company. So before the acquisition of Society Pass, we were, and we are pretty much still today, a single platform that only acts at the end of the life cycle of the product and at the end of the e-commerce value chain. What it means is that we don't own any inventory, which is obviously very, very little risk associated with that. But in counterpart, we also take a relatively small margin on every sale that we make. And as an e-commerce company, obviously, you should not work towards increasing your prices and the margin that you make off the customers, because it impacts negatively your sales. So obviously, e-commerce being also a very expensive business, especially when it comes to acquiring customers and customer acquisition costs, it usually requires a tremendous amount of capital. And although Society Pass is now a public company, we do not want to follow the path of the large e-commerce websites that are raising and burning billions of dollars. So we are making our business model shift to be more suitable to the Southeast Asia economy and the way we believe e-commerce companies and retail companies should grow in the near future. And how we do that is basically that by integrating the e-commerce and retail value chain.
Okay. Well, describe where you think e-commerce is going. Like, how are you positioning for this evolving industry?
Well, e-commerce, so from a consumer standpoint, it's only going to continue to grow, right? E-commerce penetration, especially after COVID, is only increasing. It used to be around 10%. It's only gonna keep on growing, because not only during COVID did customers form that habit, but they keep that habit because it's just obviously so much more convenient and now part of their lifestyle. But e-commerce as a business obviously will in my opinion and my forecast is going to keep concentrating around a small number of very, very well-funded players that can obviously take on losses for decades, and those big groups are going to continue to be very good on those large-scale platforms, but it's also going to create some opportunities for certain categories of goods or certain niches, and for entrepreneurs to start an innovative company in the e-commerce space or e-commerce enabling services that we believe is going to be the future of e-commerce in the region.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm just interested too, finally, and you're in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I mean, how is the industry in Southeast Asia? What is it like to operate there? And is there a lot of growth ahead in that part of the world?
This fastest growing, one of the fastest growing region in the world. So as a consumer market, millions of people right now every year are seeing their purchasing power grow tremendously, which for any consumer business is creating tremendous opportunities. So every consumer business, including e-commerce, is betting on that on the region right now. Now there are challenges. However, those challenges are also, we are addressing them very fast because this region is making a tremendous progress in infrastructure and in adoption of, the digital form of payments and many things, even regulations and the legal framework and the ease of doing business in those markets is getting better and better. So this is definitely the most exciting region to be in 2022 and in the near future.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. So thank you so much, Loic, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Explaining LaFleur and your relationship with Society Pass. It's very interesting.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Want to get linked to a really good investment? Everyone knows you have to be at the right place at the right time. So here's the deal. Linqto is that place. And when you sign up, you'll join an awesome community of investors with access to the world's leading private companies way before they go mainstream. Are you ready to get Linqto? Our unicorns are waiting. Linqto. Private investing made simple.
PetVivo is advancing animal health through innovation. Specifically, it's medical devices and therapeutics for companion animals. And with me is Mark Middleton, who is the National Sales Director at PetVivo. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, ma'am, for inviting me.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great to talk to you. And tell me about your experience in animal health.
Well, I'm definitely older than you. There's no doubt. It goes a long way. I've been in distribution in the beginning of my career for the first 3 decades and got to run a very large company in distribution and learned a lot about that side of the business. Then spent the last 10 years inside of FDA manufacturing as well as consulting with private equity groups in the merger and acquisition market opportunities for them inside the animal health space.
Mm-hmm. So what about all of that made you feel well prepared to take on this role at PetVivo?
Well, the first part of my career was dealt with nothing but veterinarians. So I've got to see their side of the business, their side of the medicine side of business, because in the end, they're true medical entrepreneurs. And so how could I help them with the products? But you have to understand the needs and wants and where they're trying to get from a medical outcome standpoint for their patients. And so the veterinary physician has been very, very helpful in my background and training in private practice. And so fully understanding their medical needs, their customer needs, and their patient outcomes, that first 3 decades of my career, that's where I spent it.
Yeah. Well, and that's valuable for a company like PetVivo. And let's talk about Spring, which is kind of their star product. I mean, where are you currently marketing it? What are your plans for Spring?
The plan for Spring with osteocushion technology, it's an interarticular placed product. So it's put in joint space capsules, whether it be equine, whether it be small animal. But the fact of where we're currently marketing it inside of the companion animal market and the equine market, it is absolutely the right time because most everything available out here in the market that's most all the products are non-biologic. we're all naturally derived osteocushion technology, spring, or man-made synthetics. So the uniqueness of this naturally derived product in this current space with the length of duration of activity was very, very appealing. And so it's good for the equine market and very good for the small animal market from an osteoarthritis situation to lameness issues and indications that can happen.
And what about the core sales team? Who are you overseeing, and what's the strategy with the sales team? Is it geographic, or how is that all designed?
Yeah, well, since we're a new startup, we got all hands on deck, and there's a lot going on. I mean, I'm telling you. But the core management team was one of the appealing things to me when you looked at their background in the medical industry from the human side and their connections there. Yeah, from the CEO down through the CFO, through the COO to the scientist, very, very, very smart people. And we've got a good core group of people now that we're building around in business development. So, yeah, when you look at that core group, we have a team of people that understand the financial side, understand the science side, and understand this growth side. Because a lot of times when you're growing a startup, and I've had that a couple of times in my career, patience, persistence, and follow through are the key. And a lot of people in the Wall Street world and may not have a lot of patience because they want to see activity right now.
That's true.
Well, a lot of times that's not the best move.
Yeah.
But yeah, this company is got the right pieces in place now. We've got a few more to add, but for an all naturally derived product, it will help a lot of situations in medical outcomes.
So is that really the thing that most impressed you about spring, was the naturalness of it? And I mean, is that what drew you to PetVivo?
I think, Jane, there's a couple of main reasons that was so intriguing to me about PetVivo. Number one, I like the core group of managers because their backgrounds. But number two, this product, Spring, with osteocushion technology, is so disruptive, but it's disruptive in a positive way. A lot of companies will say, well, we've got disruptive products, and they'll grow the market. Well, this isn't a knockoff. This is not a generic. This is not a pharmaceutical. It's a naturally derived product made in the U.S., researched and developed for nearly 20 years in the U.S. market. And it's disruptive in the sense that it's absolutely going to improve medical outcomes for patients that the veterinary physicians are seeing every day. And it's going to grow the market overall for a naturally derived components that have the scientists inside of PetVivo have learned how to put them together and have a long period of duration for joint and lameness issues. It's very exciting. And the fact that it's manufactured in the U.S., all naturally derived components out of the U.S., when you just look around the last 2 years of our world and how disruptive our everyday life has been, Jane.
Oh, yeah.
You think about all the sourced products from overseas and the difficulty. Well, this is a U.S.-based company, U.S.-based research, and now being marketed to the veterinary physician to help medical outcomes for patients. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Oh, well, great to hear about it, Mark. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk more about your role at PetVivo.
Well, I'm very humbled, and thank you very much for your questions, and I'm humbled to be here. and excited for the veterinary community to get their hands on this tool because it's going to help them. It's exciting and it's naturally derived. Thank you, Jane. Have a good morning.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Growing clones in-house can severely drain both quality and costs for cannabis and hemp businesses. PharmaGreen Biotech is the key to growing high-quality plantlets. PharmaGreen services includes premium tissue cultured starter plantlets and live preservation of any plant species. Grow into the future of optimized plant growth with PharmaGreen. See our update at update.pharmagreen.ca.
SEKUR, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. SEKUR is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using proprietary military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. SEKUR doesn't collect or sell your data and doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. You can message and email non-secure users privately without the need for others to download SEKUR. Visit SEKUR.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Berry, and this is your Secure Privacy and Security segment with Elaine Guy, the CEO of Secure Private Data. Welcome back, Elaine. How are you doing today?
Hi, Anna. Doing great, and hi to our viewers out there.
All right, so I just got a warning from the State Department of Health, basically informing us how to secure our devices for travel and vacation. And we've been doing that on our show for the past few months. So let's talk a little bit about this because it's obviously a big deal. We're all going to be traveling and we're all vulnerable to some type of cybersecurity breach. This one talks about checking your settings, password protection, update your software. Tell us a little bit about some of your tips and how we can protect our data.
Yeah, it's always nice when the government gives you good advice. In this case, it's extremely sound advice. You said Oklahoma, correct?
Yes.
Well, they're smart over there. That's the difference, right? It's a state that really understands how things work in life. And obviously in cyber attack, they did their homework. So yeah, so settings, that's interesting that they mentioned that because very few people mention settings. And the thing is that a lot of time when you update a software or you buy a new phone or you update the software on the phone, whether it's an Android or iPhone, you forget that you need to recheck your privacy settings because those are reset sometime to what they call factory level or whatever, or sometimes they don't touch it. When you update, for example, WhatsApp, which unfortunately a lot of people still use, every time there's an update, I know for fact that they reset the privacy rating to their advantage. So you have to go back in, reset your privacy settings and so forth. So what it means is you go to settings on your phone and check all the privacy. One of the things would be when you have a lot of apps, you should basically, a lot of time they ask you for your location settings. And that's a new thing because there was so many complaints that finally they had rules against companies mining your location. I mean, the first one that got in trouble, and that was very public, years ago was Uber. So now they have this thing, and that was a huge thing. They were basically getting people's location and all that for big data. Now what happens is when you have an app, it tells you, do you want to give permission, whether it's location, contact, photos, etc., at all times or while the app is in use. And that's a smart thing because when you use an app, unfortunately, you will need to grant access to your camera. I mean, if you take a photo and you want to store it, or if you share something from your phone that has a photo, you have to give that app permission. You don't have a choice. So I would always recommend privacy settings galore on as much privacy as you can. Obviously, location setting turned off, meaning you don't want to give your location out, except maybe if you're on Uber, obviously the driver needs to know where you are. And then when other application, always only while using the app. I mean, it's a simple thing to understand because it should tell you on my Android, on my Samsung, it tells me while using the app or all time or never. So just do while using the app. So that's one thing. Settings is big.
It also talks about password protect your devices. And I have a funny quote for you I think you might enjoy. It says, passwords are like underwear. Don't let people see it, change it often, and you shouldn't share it with strangers. What do you think about our passwords on our devices?
That's a pretty colorful, amazing quote, which it's funny. It's totally that. It's like, you know, you don't want people to see it. You want to be clean. That means you want to be hack proof, right? And you do want to change them often. So passwords are important. And what I would recommend is at least get a password manager, a password generator, because you're going to create a password that's going to be easy for you to remember, and it will be by association. So if you don't want to get a password generator and you still want to have a complex password, there's an old trick that I learned from a couple of cybersecurity geniuses out there. You can do a sentence. So it could be a sentence, but not a sentence relating to what you do. So if you're a big golfer, don't put a sentence, I like to golf, okay? Or you can put the location of a place or the name of a mountain. Always have a number, an upper letter, so uppercase, lowercase, a number, and an exclamation point or one of these characters, not the super odd characters, because some websites will not accept certain characters, but you know, punctuation characters are okay, and at the very least 8 characters long. I would recommend more than 8. So it could be 2 words into one, and then you mix some numbers. Don't put your date of birth. Don't put anything related to you or your family. Just come up with some random stuff, and then exclamation or interrogation, some kind of punctuation point, and that should do the trick. But it's always good to have a password generator. So that's easy. I would recommend changing passwords, especially for banking or anything that you use a lot. Change them every 90 days. I mean, that's hard to do, but you should change it every 90 days. If you use a lot of those delivery services, a lot of people in cities are used to having DoorDash and other things, and not just in cities, obviously, but you know, a small kitchen, you get your stuff delivered, you don't have time to cook. So it's a huge market. They always have the same password and the same email. So at least change your password. Gym memberships, that's another one. But basically e-banking, that's huge. Credit card, you can go on your app now to check all your credit card information. Change them every 90 days. I would recommend. Also, the other thing is Wi-Fi. I think we discussed it before. Do not use Wi-Fi that you're not comfortable with. Like if you go to a public place, use your mobile 5G and don't use Wi-Fi, because when you use Wi-Fi, it basically gives somebody else the option to hack into that Wi-Fi because it's not really that secure, and they'll discover everything that you do, right? So if you're at home, it's one thing. If you're at home, you can maybe use your Wi-Fi, but in a public place like airport, travel, you know, you get these Wi-Fi hotspots all over. Do not use them. Use your 5G connection.
I caught myself the other day when I was traveling in the airport, and I was about to, and I thought, no, Elaine says don't do it. I'm not going to take that chance and put my information at risk like that. You know, these are great tips, and there's so many more, and we try to always cover this, but it's like you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And that's exactly what SEKUR is doing. It's making people who are more aware of their data and their privacy, and then they can take this tangible action by incorporating your services into their everyday lives. So give us a little overview of what you do.
Sure. What SEKUR does is we create secure communication tools. So we have a secure and private email service for consumers and businesses. You can migrate your domain to us. You can migrate your old Gmail or what you want into SEKUR and then just use SEKUR, although we do recommend to always have one of those free big tech email for sending your email to these, you know, subscription places, and then keep your @SEKUR email private more. We have a messaging application called SEKUR Messenger. Very unique feature is that it doesn't require your phone number, so hackers can't get in and discover you every time. Like on these other applications, you can chat with somebody who doesn't have SEKUR by using chat by invite with SMS or email. You can go to sekur.com, support and tutorial. We have videos showing how to use chat by invite, because typically if you use a chat service, the other person needs to have the same app. With us, they don't need to. And it explains the whole thing. We also have the same thing with email. You can send secure send emails. So if you have somebody like a bank, a doctor, a person, anything, any kind of info that you send, tax returns. I mean, the other day somebody was telling me about some kind of financial document because they're refinancing their mortgage. Use secure send. The mortgage broker will be able to click, see your information, and use secure reply. And that information only transacts in our Swiss server environment and is not all over the net, like all of these big tech cloud, like, you know, Google, Microsoft, AWS are being hacked all the time, that we read all the time about. So that's a very unique feature. We're also launching a VPN. I remember you mentioned, I know on the email, the Department of Health mentioned use a VPN. Our VPN is going to be very particular because it will be only in Switzerland. You'll have multiple IP, because when you use VPNs, most of them are hosted on a big tech platform because they have multiple locations, and it costs a lot of money to have infrastructures in 100 countries. So, and when you change location every time, there's a downside. So you're being vulnerable. You're opening the tunnel by the time you go, let's say, from a New York location to Venezuela or whatever, or Argentina, wherever you switch around, and basically a hacker can get in. So we only have one location, multiple IPs. It's going to be very unique, private, and no matter where you are in the world, it'll just show that Swiss IP address, and we hope to have it by November of this year. It's an amazing tool, and that'll give you the extra privacy. So if you go to e-banking, you know, nobody will be able to get in and hack your system because you'll connect through our VPN. When you use secure mail or messenger, you don't need a VPN because we have a technology called Helix. But anyway, so this is what we do. Services cost between $5 to $10 a month. The email is only $7 a month. You get 100 gig of storage. And yeah, and essentially because we don't use big tech as a platform to host our services, we have both the privacy advantage that we don't need to comply with the Cloud Act, and we also don't have these big hacks that happen on big tech, and we use our own proprietary technology.
Well, these are great services, and we've been talking for over a year now, and it seems like you are just upgrading. Each time we talk, there's a new service you're providing for these new issues that we're all going to face at some point. So you're just staying ahead of the game and making sure that our data is private and secure. So from me to you, and I'm sure from all of our viewers, we thank you and can't wait to always hear what's next, because you're on top of it, Alain. Thank you, as always.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks everyone for watching the Secure segment.
Want to get linked to a really good investment? Everyone knows you have to be at the right place at the right time. So here's the deal. Linqto is that place. And when you sign up, you'll join an awesome community of investors with access to the world's leading private companies way before they go mainstream. Are you ready to get linked to? Our unicorns are waiting. Linqto. Private investing made simple.
Linqto helps identify, evaluate, and invest in the world's leading unicorn companies. And the main goal here is to democratize the financial markets. And with me is the Chief Operating Officer, Joe Indoso, and the Chief Growth Officer, Susan Miller. Welcome. And let's just start with, give me an overview of the company, because what you're doing is really unique.
We're founded on a very basic premise that the single most valuable investment class is the equity of tech companies while they're still private, before they IPO.
Pre-IPO.
Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is solve this problem of access, because historically, the only people that have been able to invest in that asset class are largely, frankly, not people. They're institutions.
That's right, yeah.
They're private equity firms, VC firms, hedge funds, large sovereign wealth funds from around the world, and individuals who are oligarchs, billionaire types. Right. But people like those of us you know, sitting around here, find it very difficult, if not impossible, to make investments systematically in that asset class. So that's what we're doing at Linqto. We're making it very simple, easy, affordable for regular people who are accredited investors, individuals, not institutions, to allocate a portion of their portfolios and consistently make quality investments in private tech companies.
Because really, the system as it is now is the rich get richer, more powerful, you know, so this is a way to, you know, just give people an opportunity to take advantage of that. And by the way, unicorn you define as a company worth $1 billion.
Correct. A private company that's valued at over $1 billion.
Okay, so I know there's a few kind of slightly different definitions. So talk to me about like just how this is an alternative for people, and how do they become an accredited investor? What do you have to do to be that?
Sure. So not our rules, but the SEC has rules about who can be an accredited investor. So typically, litmus tests would include something like, as an individual, having over $200,000 in annual income, as a household $300,000, or $1 million in liquid net worth, not including your primary residence.
Okay.
So not our rules. However, we have figured out a pretty quick way to automate the process of accreditation. So you can go on linqto.com and we can facilitate that accreditation process for you.
Okay.
Right now, only 2% of eligible investors are actually investing in private markets, 2%. And so, as Joe shared, our mission is really to democratize the private markets and create not only the possibility for folks to understand what are the accreditation rules, how do they get accredited, but give access to some of the leading unicorn investments, so some of the exciting things on the Linqto platform.
So okay, I have a lot of questions. So let's go back to the accreditation, because the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, wants to even make those rules more strict, right?
So, you know, it's interesting. Gensler has come out saying that he thinks the rules should be more strict. There's actually a bill right now that has been proposed that would allow folks, as a part of the Jobs 4.0 Act, that would allow folks to invest 10% of their income, no matter what their income is. So clearly, we're hearing something different from the American people than the SEC chair.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I guess
I fully agree with that. I mean, I think that if the fundamental premise of securities regulations in this area is to protect investors from scams and you know, people that are acting in bad faith are basically going to steal their money. I get it. We're all for that, right? But you don't necessarily achieve that simply by having these, you know, carved in stone financial tests. You actually ought to test for one's level of financial sophistication, one's capacity to take on risk, right? There are ways to get to that underlying question of, is somebody, you know, capable of making investments in these assets without necessarily having these strict tests. And so to make those tests even more strict is going to do the opposite. It's going to make it, like you started out saying, right? Fewer people are actually going to be able to invest in the asset class. We're saying no. It ought to be the opposite. Right. I mean, in America today, there's no securities regulation that prevents somebody from putting $10,000 on black in Las Vegas.
Or the lotto.
And I'm saying you can put $10,000 in a quality tech company that's worth billions and will, you know, IPO at some point for tens of billions. Why is it somehow not okay for a person to put $10,000 through Linqto in that company, and then they can go to Vegas and put $10,000 on black
with their winnings?
It's a great argument. I mean, it's the classic catch-22, right? I mean, how do you accumulate wealth if you're never allowed to start to invest it? You just get lucky, I guess.
Well, and if you think about where people are creating generational wealth, it is in the private market.
Private equity.
So typically, you know, in the past, let's say 20 years ago, a typical company would go public after 4 years. Now companies are staying private much longer. So when you think about where their hockey stick and growth is happening, it's typically before they go public. And so if you want access to where that exponential growth is happening, you know, the private markets is the only way to access that.
And you mentioned some of the companies that people are. How do you vet those? How do they get through the process where they're available on Linqto?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's super important to us because with our business model, we're actually using our own firm's capital to make these investments first.
Okay.
And so before we open them up to participation, we take the risk of those investments using our own capital. And you can imagine a situation where we use our capital to make a certain investment and none of our members decide they like it, in which case we're holding the bag for the entire thing. So investment selection is critical, obviously, because we're taking the risk with our own capital. So we have a process where that's driven by a couple of filters. We start out by looking at the whole tech spectrum. We've identified certain segments of technology that we think are going to generate long-term value because of the nature of the underlying innovation in those sectors. We then identify companies, specific companies within those sectors that we think are going to be the survivors, are going to be the ones that are most competitive, will take the most market share. And then we actually try to make the investment, which in the private markets actually isn't easy or automatic. It's not like in the public equities market, right? Where you just, once you do your investment selection, you basically go to Nasdaq.
How do you do that? Do you do like a private placement, or?
It's many different means, right? So, sometimes we're able to get an allocation to a primary funding round of a VC-funded company. So we'll fund a company alongside other VCs. Many times we have to go into the secondary market because a company that we might want to invest in just isn't doing a round at the current time. So we'll speak to the founders, we'll speak to members of the C-suite of the company, certain high-level employees that may have shares that they may want to liquefy a portion of. And we buy those shares off.
And you can actually do it on our website even.
Okay.
So if you have shares in a private company, often it's one of the executives that Joe shared.
Okay.
You can go on and type in the company and see what's the price we're willing to pay for those shares, and it'll automatically generate the transfer documents, et cetera.
I see. So it goes both ways. So an executive could also list shares.
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. And then explain the process. Like, let's say I go on there and I buy shares of something. Then if the company goes public, do I get stock, or how do I exit that investment?
Yeah, very simply, you know, when you make an investment on Linqto, you, along with our other members, end up owning a fractional share of a special purpose vehicle that owns the underlying private company shares. So when that company lists on Nasdaq, say, those shares are registered, right, and they get listed on Nasdaq. What happens at that point is the shares get distributed by the company's transfer agent to our custodian, who then turns around and distributes it to all of our members' brokerage accounts. So you'll get your share of whatever that company's, shares were that you invested in. They'll go to your brokerage account at XYZ Broker, and then you're free at that point to sell them or hold them.
Very interesting.
So if you think about a Coinbase, a Robinhood, a Novia, Marquita, SOPA, those are some examples of the companies that we've invested in that have gone public. And so, typically we're investing, pre-IPO. Those companies then have their exit, and hopefully they're still doing well on the public equity market today, but our investors are seeing a terrific return.
Because they got in pre-IPO.
Exactly.
So, is there a minimum to get started?
Yes. So the minimum investment is $10,000.
Okay.
And so for $10,000 investment, you could make your first investment in Ripple Labs, who's currently facing a lawsuit against the SEC right now. It could be Kraken or Abra or Uphold, Whoop, Eat Just, so range of companies, and as Joe shared, most of them are in the tech space, but right now digital assets are the hottest sector.
Yeah. Super interesting. And I really support anything that gets more people involved in the market and allows more people to build wealth, because it's a concern. So thank you, Joe and Susan. It's wonderful to hear about the company.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Thanks.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. you can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Well, my name's Michael. I've been taking Balance of Nature since November 2019. I'm a currency trader, a safety inspector. I work out, I have a wood shop, and I'm pretty active, so I need the energy to sustain a daily schedule. And I just found that my energy level was starting to wane. So I was looking for an edge, and Balance of Nature has been that difference maker. What it's done for me personally has been a game changer. It has given me the energy and the foundation to attack life with vigor. Balance of Nature has been a great insurance policy for me. And what it has done for me has been nothing short of phenomenal. The awesome days are more prevalent. The down days
make no mistake, the border is still a crisis.
Amen. And Myra Flores flipping that 34th congressional district in Texas, first time in a century it's been owned by a Republican. That's huge.
Absolutely. I think this is one of those things you look at, and they're going to spin that too. And they're going to say, oh, no, this doesn't mean that the Democrats are in for a shellacking. This just means that she got lucky. You know, she ran as a leftist. She ran as a progressive. Oh, I mean, it's all fake. It's all phony. It's fraud. I think her platform was God, family, and country. Not a leftist.
Right? That makes her ultra MAGA. Watch what you talk about. Those are fighting words. Right. All right, Steve, come on in here. America is safe. That is a huge lie. I want you to listen to this woman in Oakland, California. Hear what she says.
Neighbors say this recent homicide robbed them any sense of safety in their community.
I always make sure I have some kind of weapon, like a pepper spray or like a little baton, something. That's become our norm, is feeling like you always have to be ready to fight, which is a horrible feeling.
Holy cow, your chance of being a victim of violent crime in Oakland is 1 in 77, nearly 3 times higher than the state of California at large. And Steve, lying by omission here, by not addressing crime, is a serious problem for this administration, no doubt.
It absolutely is. Look, this is not an administration of law and order. Most blue state governors or blue states, they're not about law and order. Let's look at Lori Lightfoot's Chicago just for a moment. You know, let's look at even Las Vegas. Violent crimes and problems are happening on the Strip. Someone just got shot the other day. Thank God they didn't die. I mean, there's problems everywhere because police arrest, liberal judges release, and this has been the narrative for too long. And I could tell you this, we just had our primary on Tuesday, and red is looking very, very bright for Nevada in November because even Democrats, moderate Democrats, they're upset, they're frustrated. They're the Bill Maher's out there saying enough is enough. And that's what needs to happen, or we're in real trouble. I mean, this is going to get worse.
I agree with you. And Mary, how about this one? There's not much President Biden can do about it. That's what Jennifer Granholm, Janet Yellen, and yes, even Biden's press secretary all say when asked about the staggering cost of things, everything, especially gas. And they like to blame everybody else. Listen.
And so, look, we face global challenges. We've talked about this. We're not the only country dealing with what we're seeing at the moment as it relates to inflation. You know, Putin's price hike, inflation coming out of a once-in-a-generation global pandemic. All of those things play a factor. And but the way that we see this is that the American people are well positioned to face these challenges because of the economic historic gains that we have made under this president.
Okay, this is my speechless face. Mary, what the heck? Did she say anything that was actually factually true?
No, that poor woman. I mean, she is in so over her head. I actually feel sorry for her. You know,
I do too. She's so
sad.
cute.
Yeah, she's
Right.
adorable, but oh, honey, you shouldn't have that job. You're just ill prepared. Here's the problem with this administration and some of the lies that they're telling. They're telling lies that are, as I said before, blatant lies, but people feel it. And people get upset. And whether you are red, blue, or in between, when someone says to you, so what if your Wheaties are more expensive? People don't like that. That is insulting, and they're talking down to people, but they're talking down to not just the MAGA crowd. It's everyone who buys food. It's everyone who puts gas in a car. It's everyone who has to pay a mortgage or pay rent, which is the majority of Americans. And this is where the Democrats are miscalculating, in my humble opinion, is they're telling lies about things that people know flat out are not lies, and they don't like being talked down to. This is going to be their Waterloo, I think.
It's the economy, stupid. I mean, right? It's so basic.
Exactly.
And Rich here, on the heels of the "Don't Say Gay" lie, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is under fire again this time. Okay, I got to tell you why. Because according to this LA Times headline, for bullying the Special Olympics into betraying its own athletes. That it's such an obnoxious lie. DeSantis threatened to withhold money from the Olympics if they required athletes to be jabbed, which would have excluded dozens of participants. Are you at all surprised that the media would print such an obnoxious headline?
No, I'm not actually, and I find it interesting that the media has found this new obsession with Ron DeSantis. It's almost like they're paying a little bit more attention to him than they are to El Trompito. And I think that's fascinating because, you know, Trump, they got tired of going toe-to-toe with Trump, so now they go toe-to-toe with DeSantis, and I think they're getting beat on both accounts. This is a bad look for the media, and I think this is why you're seeing that resurgence to journalism and people being level-headed, and Don Lemon saying the things that he's saying, like, I don't know if Joe's the guy. I don't know if he's really very succinct. It's interesting to see how it's unraveling when the Democrats are turning on their own, and all Americans, like you mentioned, are saying, you know what, this is hurting all of us, and this isn't a good look. I'm going to have to hold my nose and vote for a Republican because at least there was money in my pocket with Trump.
Right. Hey, Steve, I'm going to give you the last 30, and it's a loaded one, okay? So here's my image, my magic 8-ball. I'm shaking it. How about DeSantis runs, DeSantis wins, names Trump as Secretary of State? What do you think?
You know, I would love Trump in any position in the cabinet, but Trump, I don't think, would ever accept that. But I would accept a DeSantis presidency. I think Ron has what it takes to lead us into the future, but I'm a Trump guy as well, so we'll see what happens.
Mary, how about I lied because I have 15 more seconds. You can take it. What do you think about that? Do you think Trump would take the Secretary of State? He'd be the first president to ever get it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think so. But one quick thing about the Special Olympics, don't forget the media totally ignored when Barack Obama compared his bowling to being in the Special Olympics. Remember that?
Yep.
Stop talking common sense. You people are out of control. Can't handle you anymore. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Steve,
Thanks,
Rich,
Wendy.
Mary, come back, please. All right, thanks. You know, lies are bad enough. Being triggered by lies, that's a different kind of crazy. What happens when political tricks lead to real danger? Next on Common Sense.
Real heroes.
Real conflict.
Real threats.
Real heart.
Now there's a place America gets its news.
No agenda.
Just the facts.
Newsmax.
Real news for real people.
Being black and voting Democrat. Do they really need to go together?